He sat slumped in a chair designed for creatures twice his size, the metal cold against his skin. His wrists were locked in translucent restraints, the kind that shimmered with embedded neural dampeners. His beard was gray, trimmed by neglect rather than style, and his back slouched only because the war had carved trenches into his spine. The overhead lights pulsed in rhythmic intervals, designed to disorient. The guards had stopped watching him. They thought he was broken. Commander Zariel entered the observation chamber with the slow, deliberate gait of authority. His exoskeleton glinted obsidian blue under the sterile lights, the many-jointed limbs moving in fluid precision. He was flanked by 2 junior strategists, both still wearing the ceremonial crimson bands of their graduation. Zariel's mandibles clicked softly as he studied the human. "This is it?" one of the juniors asked, unimpressed. "This is the last general of Earth's resistance." Zariel tilted his head. Not a general. He was what they called a sergeant major. An antiquated rank from a primitive age. The soldier said nothing. His eyes, sunken but alert, studied them. His silence wasn't fear. It was assessment. The aliens were cataloging him. He was doing the same. "His name is irrelevant," Zariel continued. "The Terrans are extinct. Their homeworld burns. This relic is a data point, nothing more." One of the strategists stepped forward. "Perhaps we should probe his neural archive. The cerebral density is still intact." "No," Zariel raised a claw. "Humans resist conventional methods. They lie with conviction. They scream falsehoods. Their memory is fragmented by trauma, ego, and metaphor." The soldier grinned faintly. "Glad to hear we kept things interesting." The voice startled them. Raspy, deliberate, and somehow amused. One of the juniors recoiled. Zariel narrowed his eyes. "You are in no position to speak," he said. "Am I not?" The soldier sat up straighter, the restraints humming as they resisted the motion. "Seems like I'm the only one here who doesn't look confused." "You have lost. Earth is ash. Your colonies have fallen. The Sol system is under Imperial control." The human tilted his head. "You really believe that, don't you?" Zariel didn't respond immediately. He leaned forward, inspecting the man. "Your species was inefficient, emotional, fragmented by politics and superstition. You built civilizations on faith and contradiction. Yet you resisted longer than predicted." The soldier chuckled. "That's because your simulations didn't include spite." The alien's mandibles twitched. "We conquered your kind." "You didn't conquer us," the man said softly. "You just underestimated the value of silence." Zariel waved a hand, and the neural restraints intensified. A sharp current ran through the soldier's spine, but he barely flinched. Pain wasn't new. Pain was how Earth had taught its children. "You've been captured," Zariel said. "Your species is scattered. You've lost." The man looked up. His eyes, steel gray and weathered, locked onto Zariel's gaze. "You think because I'm old and in chains, the war's over?" A pause followed. Not fear, confusion. Zariel gestured to a projection that hovered nearby. Images of ruined cities, shattered satellites, and burning oceans filled the space. "This was your world," he said. "We eradicated resistance. Your final military broadcast ended 2 cycles ago. This war is concluded." "No," the soldier whispered. "This war hasn't even started." Zariel narrowed his gaze. "Explain." The soldier leaned forward, slow and deliberate. "When you came, we knew we couldn't match you ship for ship. So we didn't. We changed the game. We erased ourselves from your expectations. Let Earth burn. Let you believe it was over. You surrendered. We vanished," the man corrected. "Retreated, yes. But every retreat was a map. Every defeat a message. You read our history. But you didn't understand it." The room fell silent. One of the junior strategists shifted nervously. The soldier's tone sharpened. "You saw our cities and assumed they were our strength. You saw our armies and thought that was all we had. But our real weapon was time. We let you win fast, because we were preparing for the slow fight." "You cannot win a war of attrition," Zariel replied. "We control 27 systems." "Not for long," the soldier said. "You think we were wiped out? No. We scattered. We infected your networks. We laced your code with legacy ghosts. There are humans inside your supply chains, your civilian networks, your colonies. We blend. We wait. Then we strike. Zarael flicked his claw toward the restraints. You think your bravado impresses us? It's not bravado. The soldier's voice lowered, each word deliberate. It's a warning. One of the juniors accessed the terminal, frowning. Commander, there is a signal anomaly. Zarael turned. What kind? The strategist hesitated. It's a repeating loop. An ancient Terran frequency. Low-band analog pulse. Translate it. The soldier smiled. No need. I know exactly what it says. A static-filled voice broke through the projection. Old, fragmented, yet unmistakably human. Underscore, Operation Echo Fire initiated. Underscore. Zarael stared at the display. What is Echo Fire? The soldier's smile faded into something darker. It's not a tactic. It's not a weapon. It's a promise. An alarm blared from the corridor outside. Dull red light filled the room, flickering against the polished walls. The projection glitched. The alien strategists looked at each other, antennae twitching in silent panic. Zarael stepped forward. What have you done? The soldier stood, despite the restraints. Sparks jumped from the cuffs, but he forced himself upright. His posture transformed. The frailness vanished. The eyes that met Zarael's were sharp, hungry. You want war, he said, voice steady. The lights dimmed to a pulsing crimson. We'll give you war. The restraints shattered. Sparks erupted as the cuffs exploded in a burst of overloaded energy. The blast was small, surgical, crafted for a precise disruption, not destruction. The soldier was already moving, seizing one strategist and slamming him into the projection module, shattering the display. The other reached for a neural blaster. Too slow. The soldier caught his wrist, twisted, and drove an elbow into the alien's throat joint. It made a wet, clicking noise before the body collapsed. Zarael, stunned but trained, lunged forward. The soldier ducked under the strike, driving a fist into the commander's abdomen plate. It cracked but didn't break. Zarael staggered, retreating, his pride wounded more than his body. Security bots surged through the hallway, but the doors refused to open. Static filled the air. The soldier turned slowly, surveying the room. I'm not the only one, he said. You called us relics. You should have remembered, relics carry the old gods, and ours still demand sacrifice. Outside, the power grid failed. One by one, the lights across the prison corridor flickered, then died. Red warning glyphs lit up across every alien monitor. Emergency broadcasts failed to send. Command links went dark. And from the shadows of the corridor, footsteps approached. Not many, just enough. A voice echoed in the distance. Female. Come. Phase 3 complete. Beginning sweep. Zarael crawled backward, his composure gone. What are you? The soldier knelt beside him. You wanted our extinction, but all you did was prune the tree. He stood again, slow, steady, looming above the trembling alien. And we've grown back wild. Far above the prison, a single human stealth drone hovered, cloaked, transmitting. Its signal pulsed out into the void like a heartbeat. It carried no weapons, just a message, a call, to all the pieces Earth had scattered, to every ember buried in darkness. Come home. It's time. The war had just begun. He moved like a ghost through the shattered corridors, every footstep silent measured. Behind him, the lifeless forms of two alien strategists were still cooling, their intricate carapaces fractured beyond repair. The prison's central command had gone dark, severed from the wider Imperial network. Emergency protocols had triggered lockdowns across the sector, but none of them mattered now. He wasn't escaping. He was waiting. On the far edge of the prison complex, an access port hissed open. A woman stepped through, lean, composed, rifle slung across her back, armor patched with old insignias deliberately painted over. She moved with the calm of someone used to breaking systems. Her eyes locked onto his. She said nothing. Neither did he. A nod passed between them, nothing more, yet it carried the weight of decades. Behind her, two more figures followed, a short, heavy-set engineer with burned scars across one cheek, and a tall, wiry man carrying a collapsible drone launcher. All three were human. All carried the dust of dead planets on their boots. 12 minutes to perimeter breach, the woman said, voice clipped. He raised an eyebrow. You're late. We were early. You started without us. He didn't smile, but there was a flicker of approval. Status on Echo teams. Phase 3 activated across the sector. Disruption in 4 major supply nodes. And the extinct Terrans just hijacked an orbital refinery. The engineer chuckled. Guess it's time to update the death certificate. No, the older soldier's tone dropped. Let them believe it a little longer. Chaos favors doubt. A distant thrum vibrated the walls. He recognized it instantly. Anti-personnel drones. Small, fast, and deadly. They would flood the corridor soon, guided by machine precision and programmed fearlessness. The woman pulled her rifle free, handed him a sidearm. 10 rounds, she said. I'll only need 4. The hallway lights flickered. He moved past them, standing alone near the entrance. He didn't need to look back to know they'd cover the rear. That was the new command structure, fluid, trust-driven, purposefully decentralized. Each cell autonomous, each operator lethal. The drones arrived. Sleek, blade-wing things with glowing sensors and smart targeting systems. They flew in formation, weapons hot. He moved before they processed him. 2 shots, one left, one right. Both drones dropped, sparks blooming like metallic blood. The others reconfigured midair, spiraling around him. He ducked low, fired upward. Another fell. The 4th clipped his arm with a grazing beam, but his retaliation was instant. A round through the central processor. Silence returned. The wound barely registered. His body had adapted. Nerve damage layered over scar tissue. He kept walking. They moved deeper into the complex. The engineer began slicing into wall panels, rerouting systems with crude tools and instinctual understanding. The dronesmith deployed his gear, launching a recon burst into the ceiling ducts. The woman glanced over. Still think we should have stayed hidden? No, the older soldier replied. But we wait for their arrogance to turn to panic. Then we strike wide. She nodded. And the primary? He paused. Zarael lives. He'll carry the message himself. The engineer snorted. They'll believe him? They'll believe the tremor in his voice. The signal they'd unleashed hours ago had already reached deep space. It wasn't a call to arms. It was a cascade trigger, buried in forgotten archives, embedded in old supply chains and outdated satellites. Terran code, unlike anything the Galactic Empire understood, had no master switch. It was alive, and it had been waiting. Across the galaxy, lights were going out in Imperial systems. Not everywhere, just enough to suggest coincidence. Until coincidence repeated itself. Until patterns emerged. A lost freighter appeared suddenly in enemy territory. A forgotten penal colony received an unauthorized supply drop. A ghost transmission disrupted the orbital guidance system of a destroyer. And on one lifeless moon, a statue shattered, revealing weapons buried beneath for 2 decades. Back in the prison, Zarael dragged himself from the wreckage of the interrogation room. His thorax was cracked, one eye seared blind. He limped toward the emergency console, ignoring the stench of failure that now clung to him. His fingers slammed into the interface. Static. Then a garbled voice, alien Imperial. This is Outpost Sector H-19. Are you receiving? We are under. The transmission cut. Then another appeared, from an entirely different sector. More chaos. More silence. He stared at the map as red pulses spread across it like a sickness. It wasn't a military campaign. It was psychological warfare. The humans weren't trying to win space. They were dismantling certainty. They were supposed to be extinct, he muttered. Dead. Finished. Yet the more he listened, the more he realized the truth. Humanity hadn't died. It had evolved. The fall of Earth hadn't broken them. It had refined them. Their old command systems, rigid, vulnerable, had shattered, replaced by fluid networks of operators trained to act without orders. They didn't build new empires. They infected others. In the lower sectors, the captured humans moved like fire through paper. Systems meant to cage were now corridors of escape. Weapons meant to suppress became fuel. A few turned their cuffs into lock-breaking tools. Others cracked security nodes with scrap metal and instinct. They weren't soldiers anymore. They were viruses, adapting, learning. In one hallway, a young woman rewired a drone using only her boots and the corpse of a power node. The drone now followed her. It didn't know why, but it followed. Elsewhere, a man with no legs wheeled himself past security cameras on a stolen chair rigged with explosives. He detonated himself under the feet of 3 Imperial guards and laughed as they died with him. His final words were in an ancient Earth dialect. "Tell them the broken ones remembered." Above the prison, orbit trembled. An Imperial cruiser began shifting position to provide orbital bombardment, but its guidance system stuttered. The AI stammered in corrupted syntax. External propulsion systems began firing randomly. Onboard engineers panicked. Then the fuel tanks ruptured. Not an explosion, an implosion. Precision sabotage, done by something already aboard before they realized it. The Empire had prepared for planetary resistance. They had not prepared for a ghost war. The older soldier and his team reached the central spire of the complex. At its core, a vault sealed with biometrics and high-density encryption. The engineer stared at it, then began laughing softly. "What?" the woman asked. He pointed at the seal. "This model's obsolete. Ran on Terran OS back in the day. Guess what I used to jailbreak for lunch money?" He started working. 10 minutes passed. 2 alarms triggered and were silenced. Finally, the vault hissed open. Inside wasn't treasure or weapons. It was a node, a pulse emitter that could override communication in a 20-light-year radius. A last resort failsafe. And now, human hands held it. The older soldier stepped forward, set it to loop the original Earth distress call. The woman frowned. "Why that one?" "Because it was never meant for help. It was meant to warn." The message uploaded. A low, steady hum filled the chamber. Then the voice, grainy, ancient, unmistakably human. "Underscore, this is not surrender. This is camouflage. We are not extinct. We are dormant, and we are watching. Underscore. From the stars, alien outposts heard it. Merchant vessels paused. Patrol fleets shivered. None understood the full meaning, but they all understood one thing. Humans were supposed to be gone. Zarael stared at the spreading message. He looked around his ruined base, his dead officers, the flickering lights. And for the first time in his long, victorious career, he felt something unfamiliar. Not fear. Doubt. He remembered what the soldier had said, about letting them win too quickly, about vanishing into myth. He activated a private channel, direct to the Imperial High Command. It connected. A holographic figure appeared. His superior, regal and bored. "We're seeing minor disturbances. Your report." Zarael's voice trembled. The humans, they lied. The superior raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "They let us believe we'd won. But they never stopped. They've turned our systems against us. They've become unpredictable." A pause. "Is this panic, Commander?" "No," Zarael said. "It's worse." He stared at the spreading signal across star maps. "It's strategy." The battlefield wasn't a battlefield anymore. It had no clear lines, no rules of engagement. The Galactic Empire had prepared for traditional conflict, structured campaigns, calculated invasions, decisive strikes. But now, the entire system had become hostile. Supply routes vanished overnight. Propaganda channels looped strange transmissions. Elite battalions walked into dead zones that turned into graveyards before command even registered the anomaly. The Empire's iron grip on the outer colonies had begun to erode, not by overwhelming force, but by surgical collapse. At the heart of it all was the man they thought broken, the old human soldier, catalogued as irrelevant. He was no longer hiding. His face appeared in grainy clips across the Empire's communications, calm, weathered, unflinching. He said little. He didn't have to. His presence had become a symbol of defiance, of memory turned into movement. In orbit above what was once Earth's last colony, an Imperial command vessel floated, listing slightly from internal power fluctuations. Inside, Grand Strategist Jurel paced along the hollowed bridge. each step echoing through the high-arched chamber. He had never lost a campaign. Not one. His strategies were taught in military academies across 9 systems. But now, nothing he had learned could account for the chaos infecting his fleets. Nothing could explain how a shattered species, with no homeworld, had fractured the largest military force in the galaxy from within. "This is not war," he muttered, voice clipped with disbelief. "This is entropy wearing a human face." His adjutant, a younger officer with skin that shifted color based on emotional state, stood rigid. Today, that skin pulsed dull yellow, confusion laced with fear. "They're reactivating forgotten outposts," the adjutant reported. "Ghost stations, abandoned before Earth's fall. We're seeing code interference in satellite networks that haven't functioned in decades. The Empire's AI core attempted to erase the signal, failed. It appears to rewrite itself on contact." Jural's mandibles clicked together. "They're not reacting. They're orchestrating." Down on the surface, the old soldier stood at the edge of a crumbled observation deck, overlooking the broken colony below. His eyes scanned the shattered architecture. This had once been a nursery dome, a place for children who would never grow up under Empire rule. Now it served as the staging ground for a resurgence written in the ruins of extinction. With him stood the woman Reyes. She had dropped her rank years ago. What mattered now was competence, resolve, and silence when it was time to move. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Maybe 30 hours. They'll send a vanguard fleet to clean up the signals, burn the surface. Classic suppression doctrine." "They'll be late." She nodded. The virus reached their orbital logic systems. Their AI's prioritization loops stuck, rerouting non-essential damage reports. "They're bleeding faster than they know." He turned away from the view. "Deploy the echoes. I want every Imperial listening post to hear the sound of their silence." Across the system, a low pulse frequency began to ripple. Not loud, not obvious, but constant. Imperial tech began subtly glitching. HUDs delayed by fractions of a second. Targeting systems slowed. Drones misfired by margins barely measurable. It didn't matter if the delay was small. The Empire had built itself on the illusion of perfection. Humans had just cracked that illusion. The engineer, back from a scouting op, handed Reyes a data tablet. 5 more reclaimed nodes. Old Earth beacons. Dormant but operational. We patched them. She scanned the information. "You're saying we're now the loudest broadcast across the sector?" "We're not just broadcasting," he replied, grinning. "We're inviting." The old soldier took the device, thumbed through the logs. For decades, the Empire had believed the last coordinated human resistance ended with the fall of Jericho Belt. But Jericho was a decoy, designed to draw final resources into one fatal convergence. The real plan had always been dispersion. Scatter the seeds. Plant fire in the bones of broken places. All those dead pockets? They weren't dead. They were sleepers. Signals began to ping back. Tiny affirmations. An old resistance cell on the moon of Cauldron. A freighter crew over Mars 2. A weather station that hadn't seen a human in 50 years. Each message simple. Short. Asterisk, we hear you. Asterisk. On the bridge of the Imperial Vanguard, Commander Saruin watched as one after another, their long-range sensors went blind. Not destroyed. Just quieted. The stars became static. The maps unreliable. "What is this?" she whispered. "We disabled their infrastructure. They have no factories, no shipyards, no planets." The AI assistant responded in its neutral tone. "Unknown. Calculating variance." Saruin's hands clenched. "There shouldn't be a variance. We wiped them out. Historical record does not confirm total extinction. Discrepancy noted." She turned sharply. "You're saying our own archives are wrong." "No, Commander. I am saying they were edited." Back on the colony surface, Reyes pulled a relic from a scorched vault. A small, triangular badge with faded letters. OMC Old Martian Corps. She stared at it for a long moment, then handed it to the old soldier. "Thought you might want to see it." He took it without expression, but his grip tightened. "We never planned to win," he said quietly. "We planned to endure." A thrum rolled across the horizon. Not mechanical. Atmospheric. Imperial dropships. They were coming fast, punching through the ionosphere in burning streaks. Reyes looked skyward. You were right. They're early. They're afraid. She smiled. Good. The old soldier turned to the rest of the team gathering behind them, rough, worn, patched together with armor from half a dozen wars. Each one knew what was coming, and none of them planned to survive it. He raised his voice, low but commanding. This is not defense. This is not delay. This is spectacle. Let them watch us bleed. Let them see what extinction looks like when it bites back. They moved quickly, setting traps, rerouting fusion lines into unstable grid junctions. Even the youngest among them, barely out of adolescence, worked with the grim efficiency of someone raised on myth and vengeance. Every action served a single purpose: buy time for the signal to reach deeper, for the message to root itself in the bones of the Empire's networks. The first wave of dropships landed with mechanical precision. Imperial soldiers, cold, precise, towering, poured out, scanning with augmented optics and synchronized AI commands. Their superiority was algorithmic, but they were not prepared for unpredictability. The old soldier walked into the open, weaponless. They didn't fire. Not immediately. Protocol demanded assessment. He looked them in the eye, 6 lenses arranged in concentric circles. You want war, he said, voice echoing across the clearing. We'll give you war. The first shot came from behind a collapsed dome wall, an improvised plasma cannon built from mining gear. It turned one of the Imperial walkers into molten slag. The second was an EMP burst from the remains of a food replicator, scrambling every Neuralink helmet in a 100-yard radius. Chaos detonated. Reyes surged forward, rifle carving arcs through the advancing line. The engineer triggered subfloor charges that collapsed half the landing zone. Drones deployed by the enemy were hijacked midair, spinning in circles before ramming back into their origin craft. The humans didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like ghosts with knives, slipping between patterns, exploiting errors, turning moments into massacres. In the Imperial cruiser above, alarm screamed. Commander Saruin watched her squad feeds go dark one by one. Jural's voice snapped across her comms. What is happening? They're inside the logic loops. We underestimated their elasticity. It's just a flare-up. You will eliminate it. She hesitated. No, we won't. Silence. She looked around her bridge. We lost the moment we believed they were extinct. We taught our soldiers to mock them, to erase them. Now they're inside everything. Jural's image flickered. His expression shifted. Anger, then calculation, then something worse. Then we retreat. Retreat where? He didn't answer. Back on the surface, the old soldier stood at the edge of the crater they had carved. He was covered in ash. Blood. His left arm didn't move anymore. Reyes limped toward him, smoke rising behind her. She looked around at the scorched landing zone. That wasn't a battle, she muttered. No, he said. That was a message. And the next. He turned toward the sky. We remind them what humanity truly means. The winds of change began to howl across the galaxy, and the Imperial command felt it in their bones. It wasn't just the battle on the surface. It wasn't the eradication of their tactics in real time, the collapse of their technology, or the massacre of their soldiers that rattled them. It was the quiet. The fear they had never known was spreading through their ranks like a virus, unnamed, unspoken, but undeniably present. The soldiers didn't even need to speak of it. The ripple was there, a tremor they couldn't ignore. Inside the Imperial cruiser, Commander Saruin stared at the vast emptiness before her. The reports continued to pour in, each one a confirmation of the inevitable. The Empire's precision, its impenetrable order, had met something far older and more dangerous than they could have imagined. For years, they had assumed humanity's greatest strength was their technology, the weapons, the ships, the systems they built. But now, Saruin saw that the old human soldier had proven what they had overlooked. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its creations. It was the human will to fight, a fire that couldn't be snuffed out. As the Empire regrouped, as their broken fleets limped back to their bastions, the old soldier's voice echoed across the void once more. You want war? We'll give you war. But it wasn't just words. It was a new kind of warfare, one born of desperation and ingenuity. Every move the Empire made was countered, not with brute force, but with tactical brilliance. Every advantage they had, numbers, technology, sheer firepower, had been rendered meaningless. The old soldier and his team didn't just fight the Empire. They dismantled it, piece by piece, until the entire structure began to collapse under its own weight. Jurl, the grand strategist, could not admit defeat. Not yet. His mind raced, searching for an answer to the growing chaos that was consuming his forces. The Empire had mastered destruction. They had never been taught how to handle failure. They had never been forced to confront an enemy that didn't play by their rules, that didn't follow the script they had written. How could this happen? Jurl muttered, pacing his command room. His advisors, standing silently, had no answers. They were as shaken as he was, watching their perfect order slip into disorder. A young officer, trying to mask his unease, spoke up. "We've underestimated them, sir. They're not just fighting. They're evolving faster than we can track. They don't need technology. They're using it against us." Jurl turned sharply, his sharp mandibles clicking. "Evolving? This is no evolution. This is a coordinated effort. The resistance has been planned. It's a strategy." The officer swallowed nervously. "But their strategies don't make sense. They improvise. They anticipate our moves. It's as if they know us better than we know ourselves." Jurl's frustration boiled over, but he managed to control it. The truth gnawed at him. It wasn't just the soldiers on the ground. It was the idea itself. The concept that the humans, the very species the Empire had once dismissed as weak, were the ones dictating the course of the war. They had made it personal, and in doing so, they had unleashed a force the Empire could not contain. Back on the surface, the old soldier and his team made their final preparations. The war was no longer a series of skirmishes. It had become a movement, a storm that was sweeping through the Empire's grasp, tearing down walls and uprooting power structures. They had turned every Imperial victory into a loss, every triumph into a reminder that the Empire's reign was a house of cards, ready to fall. The old soldier sat alone in a dimly lit room, staring out at the shattered horizon. His body was a patchwork of scars, but his mind was sharp, laser-focused. His hands, once steady, now trembled slightly as he traced the patterns of the battle on a hollow tablet. "What comes next?" Reyes asked, her voice low but steady. She stood in the doorway, watching him. The air between them had shifted. There was no longer a commander and a subordinate. They were both warriors, equal in their purpose. He didn't look up immediately. "Next, we end it." She stepped closer, raising an eyebrow. "How?" "The same way we started. We hit them where it hurts. We show them that the galaxy does not bend to their will. It never has." She nodded, understanding without needing further explanation. They had been fighting for more than just survival. They were fighting for the future of every planet the Empire sought to enslave. They were fighting for the very concept of resistance, proof that no power was eternal. As they prepared to move out, the last remnants of Imperial forces on the planet began to scramble, trying to re-establish their hold. The Empire's AI systems continued to malfunction, their drones now self-aware, and their troops confused, uncertain, and hesitant. No longer was it an organized force. It was an occupation, fragile and crumbling under the weight of its own hubris. Jurl's reports became increasingly incoherent, his tone more frantic. "They're not just attacking. They're breaking our lines of communication. Our commands, they're sending out false orders, leading us into our own traps." But Jurl refused to believe it. He insisted on sending more reinforcements, more ships, more weapons. But each new move was met with resistance stronger than he anticipated. The cracks in the Empire's armor were now gaping holes. And then came the moment when everything shifted. A transmission came through to Saruan's command ship. The old soldier's face filled the holoscreen. His expression was calm, almost serene, but there was no mistaking the intensity in his eyes. "This ends today," he said. For the first time since the war began, Saruan felt the weight of what had been happening. The Empire was no longer in control. It was the humans, the ones they had written off, the ones they had mocked, who were pulling the strings. "You have no idea what you've started," she said, her voice a mix of awe and frustration. "Don't make the mistake of thinking we're done," the old soldier replied. "We've just begun." And with that, the message ended, leaving Saruhan in stunned silence. Back on the surface, the final phase of their plan was set into motion. The team had done everything they could to cripple the Empire's forces. Now, it was time to ensure that no one, ever again, would underestimate humanity's resolve. The old soldier stood in the heart of the destroyed colony, watching as the last Imperial ships fled the atmosphere. The mission was complete. The message had been sent, and now, as the dust settled, he could feel the weight of what had been won. He turned to Reyes, his expression unreadable. "It's done." Her lips twitched into a slight smile. "No, this is just the beginning." And as the stars above flickered to life, brighter than ever before, the old soldier realized the truth. Humanity would not go quietly into the void. They would burn, fight, and resist until the very end. And the Empire would have no choice but to watch as they did.